Hey everyone, Stupin here, and once again, we are back with yet another deck profile. We just had EUIC results over the last weekend, so this week, I kind of want to have more of like the meme or the mellow decks, the more fun or rogue decks. So this week, we're going to take a look at Blastoise EX. This is from 151. It's got 330 HP on a Stage 2 Water-type Pokemon EX with the ability Solid Shell. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks after applying weakness and resistance. And for 2 Water Energy, you do 140 damage times the amount of Water Energy you discard. You can discard up to 2 total, so you can hit for 280 for 2 energy, which is pretty good. Before, 280 was just enough to knock out, say, V-Stars. But now we have a few new things with Temporal Forces to increase that damage output. And the biggest thing that was holding this deck back before was the prevalence of Miraidon in the metagame. And now that that's kind of fallen off and there's not really much lightning, the weakness here doesn't really matter too much. And you actually have some pretty good matchups into a lot of decks, surprisingly. So we're going to start off, of course, we have 3 copies of that Blastoise we just talked about. And we are playing one single Wartortle. This is the one from 151, 100 HP. The attacks don't really matter too much. If you're in a desperate pinch, I guess free diving to put 3 energy cards from your discard pile into your hand is alright. But we are playing 3 copies of the Squirtle from 151. There's also a 70 HP from Pokemon Go, so if for whatever reason someone around you is playing like Iron Valiant, or you think that 10 extra HP is going to matter, feel free to swap these out with the Pokemon Go ones and try that out instead. But the main draw to this one is the attack with Draw. Flip a coin. If heads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attack. So it's like one of those like desperate situation kind of things, but it does potentially pay off. If this is like your last Pokemon and you flip heads, you just bought yourself another turn to potentially like rare candy up into Blastoise and start swinging back again. To support, we have another attacker and technically an engine at the same time. We have Palkia V-Star. So this thing is pretty brutal. Again, the basic V isn't nothing too much to scoff at. We talked about this recently in the Golden Go list. But of course, the V-Star, 280 HP, Stage 1 basically with the V-Star. Subspace Swell does 60 plus 20 more damage for each of your bench Pokemon and your opponent. So if you have a full bench, they have a full bench, you're hitting for 260 damage for 2 energy, which isn't the worst. And again, the main draw here is really the Star Portal V-Star power. You can attach up to 3 Water Energy cards to your Water Pokemon once, and just it works out really well. So you get the energy in the discard pile, use Palkia to re-accelerate the energy back into play. You can potentially start swinging with this and whatever else. We also are, of course, rocking the Radiant Greninja with Concealed Cards and Moonlight Shuriken. You know this card by now. I shouldn't have to cover this guy in almost every deck profile, but it's so good. And you can actually tag with it thanks to the Palkia. So you can use the Star Portal load up onto this and take 2 single prize KOs. So it feels pretty good there. In terms of support, we have 1 Lumineon for Luminous Sign and Aqua Return, and you can technically use Aqua Return to shuffle it into the deck and hit for 120, thanks to Palkia's V-Star power, loading it up. And we have 1 Manaphy to protect our benched Pokemon, and last but not least, we have a 2/2 Bibarel line for Industrious Incisors to draw until we have 5 cards. That way we can play things like Iono to disrupt our opponent and still not feel too bad here with the Bidoof and Bibarel to back us up to make sure we always have cards in our hand. But that's all the Pokemon, so pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy here. In terms of supporters, it's pretty obvious we're going to play 4 copies of Irida, search your deck for a Water Pokemon and an item card and put them in your hand. This is how you grab Blastoise, Palkia, Greninja, whatever. You can grab literally any Pokemon from over here and any item card in the deck. We have 2 copies of Ino for that hand disruption. Reset our opponent's hand down, and once we have Bibarel set up, we just start drawing cards back up to keep our hand up. And last but not least, we have 2 copies of Boss's Orders for our gusting effects. Pretty straightforward. And now the card that really makes Blastoise stand out now, finally in my opinion, is the Maximum Belt. The attacks by this Pokemon do 50 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX. So if you discard 2 energy with Blastoise, you were hitting 280 previously, which is enough to knock out, say, V-Stars. But now, with 50 more, you're knocking out almost every single other Stage 2 Pokemon EX, aka Charizard. It has 350 HP. You're knocking out Gardevoir EX has 310. So this just really brings the math up in favor of Blastoise, and it's a tank itself taking less damage. So you're not going to knock out any opposing Blastoises, but I highly doubt you're going to have any mirror matches playing Blastoise EX at locals or at whatever event you're going to play this at. In terms of setting up, we've got 3 copies of Buddy Buddy Poffin, grabbing 70 HP or lower basic Pokemon from the deck. In this case, we can grab Manaphy, Squirtle, and Bidoof. Really just the foundations of setting up. In addition, we have 3 copies of Nest Ball. This is going to help us find other basic Pokemon like Palkia V and Radiant Greninja. You can technically use it for the Bidoof, the Squirtle, and the Manaphy as needed. Don't do it for Lumineon, you won't get the effect. But to get the effect of Lumineon and to help find our Stage 2s and Evolutions, we have 3 copies of Ultra Ball, which mostly you're going to use the Ultra Ball to find Bibarel, because Irida can grab everything else. So now we have our Pokemon search covered. We have 3 copies of Rare Candy. Let's us skip the Stage 1 Wartortle and go right from Squirtle to Blastoise. And again, you grab this with Irida to combo those pieces off. We have 3 copies of Earthen Vessel to get energy into our hands and potentially into the discard pile to combo for some synergy later on. And for that, of course, we have 2 copies of Superior Energy Retrieval. Discard 2 cards from hand, get up to 4 basic energy from your discard pile back into your hand. This is how you just restock for your twin cannons to be able to discard 2 every single turn. And without the discard drawback, we just have a single copy of Energy Retrieval to get 2 back from the discard pile. In terms of recovery, of course, just 1 Super Rod here, nothing too crazy. Get our Pokemon and energy potentially back into the deck if we want them there. And we have a counter catcher for Gusting. You can grab this off Irida, so Irida can grab a Pokemon, and then this counter catcher, if we're behind on prizes, it's basically a 3rd copy of Boss's Orders. And the last items, but definitely not the least important, we have 2 copies of Switch. Blastoise has quite the fat retreat cost of 3. Palkia has a retreat cost of 2. Bibarel has a retreat cost of 2. And unlike a Chien-Pao Baxcalibur deck where you can just put the energy back in your hand and retreat over and over again, we only can use V-Star power once per game, so we can only Star Portal once to keep Pokemon loaded up with energy cards. So in order to not prevent us from having to discard those to retreat, we're playing a heavier switch count than I would prefer to, but it is just part of the drawback of this deck. For terms of stadiums, we're playing 2 copies of Lake Acuity. Pokemon that have any water or fighting energy attached, yours and your opponents take 20 less damage from attacks after applying weakness and resistance. So between Blastoise's ability and this, Blastoise takes 50 less damage from most attacks, so they're going to have to 2 or maybe 3 shot it depending on what their damage output potentially is. This also keeps things like Squirtle alive a little bit longer, Palkia, V-Star, so on and so forth. Effectively, if you have Radiant Greninja, you'll leave an energy on there that's got 150 HP instead of 130. So that might make a big difference there. And finally, we're just playing 9 basic water energy. Nothing too crazy. I could see this getting cut down to 8 since we play 3 vessels if you wanted, say, another Ultra Ball or maybe a Defiance Band. But any more than 1 tool card, I'd probably want to find a way to slot an Arven to find it. But Irida is just so much better for any of these water-based decks. But yeah, for now, 9 basic water energy. Nothing too crazy here. But this is the Blastoise deck that I've been playing, and it's been a lot of freaking fun. So hopefully you enjoy this, give it a try. I think it's better than people are thinking, ultimately. I don't know if it's going to, say, win a regional or win an IC, but I like it. I really much enjoyed it. I enjoyed it when I played it before, and Maximum Belt really just solved the problems that it had. Buddy Buddy Poffin also helps you just set up Squirtles and Bidoofs so much faster and easier, say, than comparing to having to play VIP and then whiffing it. So you're able to always Buddy Buddy Poffin potentially. But let me know what you think of this deck down below in the comments. Of course, make sure if you've made it this far, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel to support out. We're almost to 5K subs, so I'm super excited for that milestone. I've been streaming a lot more on Twitch, typically most Thursdays. I'll be multi-streaming here and Twitch for some Pokemon content. If I have somebody to come play tabletop with me, then we'll make that happen. If not, expect TCG Live, and maybe I play this or whatever else. So last week we played Roaring Moon Dunsparce before it popped off at EUIC, and that deck was so fun. So go check out the lives over on the channel if you want to see some TCG Live gameplay. The list for that deck is in the description. I'll make sure to start putting lists in the descriptions for these videos. I see a lot of comments asking about it, so I'll make sure I start trying my best to make that happen. But without further ado, I'm going to get the heck out of here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Much love and peace out.